Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Mo. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on D365 F&O AP automation. We are going to focus today on the out-of-the-box functionality that already exists inside F&O that is already available to you if you are using the product. So, quick round of... One second, let me just get to the right screen. So very quickly, today's agenda, introductions, overview, run through the invoice capture functionality, quick discussion around the costs, some demo and setup functionality, quick chat about Copilot, and closing remarks. We've only got an hour, so let's get straight down to it. Introductions. Your presenters today, ably assisted by Ray and Hassan, who are helping us out with the moderation of the event, are Mo Beji, who just joined us. He's our D365 lead architect, and myself, Grantley Smith. I am, amongst other things, our ERP modernization lead. Little bit of background about our organization. We are Dev Analytic 365. We're a Microsoft solution partner with over a decade of experience and success in all of the Microsoft business applications, in fact. So we work primarily with F&O, but we also work with CE, with Business Central, and then the directly surrounding technologies. So anything related to Power Platform, Power BI, Power Automate, and anything data, analytics, and AI. So Fabric, Copilot, and anything that says AI. We have... Let me just go through this very quickly for you. We have multiple Microsoft designations. We're a designated solutions partner for business applications, digital and app innovation, and data and AI. The importance of these from our perspective, and hopefully from your perspective as well, is that these are independently validated designations that we get. So Microsoft does go out and score us independently, not just on the amount of revenue that we provide to Microsoft, but also on our technical skill sets, the qualifications of our people, and the success that we have with our customers. So they actually go out to our customers and validate that we have indeed delivered successful projects to them and that they are happy with us. So we have a proven track record and referenceable clients. The other nice thing about these designations when it comes to picking a partner is it gives us accelerated access to Microsoft funding, to Microsoft resources, to their support team, and gives us access to their fast track implementation team if we need their assistance with anything in particular that we might run into with a customer. So quick summary, 10 plus years in business, just over 50 employees. We've completed as an organization well over 200 engagements with our customers. Amongst our team, we have delivered around about 1,000 or more implementations of various shapes and sizes in the F&O world. And we carry in excess of 55 Microsoft certifications. So not just the badges that you see on the screen, but also the individual designations that all of our senior consultants carry as well. And we support them in the maintenance and the upgrading of those designations on an ongoing basis. Quick plug, we have another webinar coming up very soon on the 28th of July at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. That will be presented by Mo and Nastaran, who's one of our lead developers, and they will be talking about the LCS to PPAC move, what's happening, why it's happening, what you should look out for, and how to try and eliminate any risk from that move as you go through it. So we do have another session coming up, 28th of July. Please put that on your calendars. Please register and listen to somebody other than me talking for once. So why are we here today? We typically find that attendees for these events fall into three categories. Category number one is that you currently, as an organization, maybe don't have any AP automation, and you're looking around at what is available in the market, possibly looking at ISVs, may or may not have looked directly at the functionality that you already have within F&O, but you're in an evaluation process. You haven't actually done anything yet. The second category, and we've had a lot of these conversations at recent events, is F&O customers who are running a solution already, potentially an ISV solution, but are either unhappy with it, unhappy with the cost of the additional licensing, and are looking back to core functionality and all the work and the investment that Microsoft has put into it to see what is possible. Finally, there's the group that is simply here from a knowledge base, looking to understand, to learn what's coming, to learn what's possible. And we're happy to share all of those details with you as well. And as with all of our sessions, if you have any questions at all, so that you don't forget them and so that we don't run out of time, please put them into the chat and we will moderate the chat and do our best to answer them as we go along. So the issues that we're going to talk about today and the problems that typically give rise to looking at AP automation, there's obviously the biggest one, the hottest topic is always manual invoice entry, the effort required to key invoices physically into the system. It's also the most exciting part of it, right? Invoice ingestion automatically into the application. And then we look at approval processes, the ability to deal with duplicates or late payments, but also duplicate transactions. Historically, traditionally, OCR as a technology has been around for a while, but it was not the most accurate of technologies when it first came out, and a lot of effort had to be put into training OCR, typically vendor by vendor, layout by layout, to know where to identify things within a document. Those days are gone, and we'll talk about that some more today. The overload of vendor communication, the number of times you get a phone call asking where my payment is, why hasn't my invoice been paid yet? Those are things that can also now be automated through AP automation, through AI communication, through simple integration with email, and trying to make sure that we speed up, always trying to deliver value, not just functionality, but speed up the processing of month end and the closing of month end. So those are the types of things we are going to talk about as we talk about AP automation, and the types of things that we can solve through various components of the out-of-the-box AP automation functionality that already exists inside F&O. AP automation is not a new conversation. Just a quick bit of history for anybody that's interested. The first step into AP automation really was back in the 80s when EDI arrived, and EDI was a method of communication, a proprietary network for communication between business partners. And that's where AP automation really began its journey. I'd say it was a proprietary network. There was a format for every company, for every document. It was an incredibly expensive investment, and only the very largest of organizations are still surviving through the EDI network today successfully. OCR arrived in the 90s, XML in the 2000s to try and standardize the document formats. Automation improved. Intelligence was added to AI as early as the 2010s, especially in some of the capture and the validation. And now we get right up to date, and we have the ability to have agents involved in the process. For those of you that are familiar with Copilot, we have autonomous capabilities, and we have intelligence as opposed to simple process automation. So the journey continues, but it's a journey that's actually been around for a very, very long while. The key features of AP invoice automation in simple form. There is the invoice ingestion at the very beginning, the automation of that process, the removal of fingers on keys, the removal of rekeying errors, the speed of ingesting those documents through various fashions, either through email, through portals, through EDI, through integration. There are different ways of doing that. Then there is the extraction of the data from those documents, and that extraction is now not just old school ACR, but it's also the AI extraction of those documents and its ability to read an invoice without having to be told where to look for the data. Validation capabilities, and those are either rule-based, automated, or again, they can be AI enhanced. So ensuring that the details are correct, ensuring that the calculations are correct. If it's an invoice that's being matched against a purchase order or a receipt, understanding the matching criteria and the matching conditions, the integration of those transactions into finance, the approval mechanisms that go with them. So approval workflows, overrides any other approval or permission settings that you need. And then finally, the complete audit trail that goes along with all of that, that stores the document, that allows you to prove out your processes properly. And finally, any communication that goes along with that. So those are the elements of, at a high level, AP invoice automation. There are many more components to that, and any one of those elements can be implemented, or in the case of F&O, turned on effectively without necessarily having to do everything. It's not an end-to-end, all-or-nothing process. It is the ability to cherry pick which sections of this are most important to you. All right. With that, I am going to hand over to my co-presenter. So I am going to stop sharing the screen, and I am going to hand over quickly to Mo, who is going to take on the next part of the presentation for you. You're on mute, Mo.
Mo, you're still on mute.
I've never heard that in the past year that I'm in mute. I apologize. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. It's a pleasure for us to present this to you, and thank you, Grantley, for the beginning part of this. Before we actually talk about any theory of how invoice automation or AP automation in general works, I would like to show you how it really looks like. And the most important piece of AP automation is the intake of the invoices, right? What you want to do at least is that you don't have to have someone keying in your invoices and receiving them in different mailboxes and all that. You really want that piece automated. And it's not a simple automation as taking a file and just jumping it into D365. For sure, you want to create those records, the proper customer invoice record, vendor invoice record, and all the following steps after that. The first piece is really that invoice capture. Invoice capture, what it does, it allows you to actually take the invoices, run all the validation rules that you require, do all the mapping between your files, the incoming files, could be PDF, could be an image, and your D365 invoice entity files, and being able to import it directly into D365. So in the end, you'll have an invoice, you have an attachment that has that invoice that's linked to that invoice in D365. So we're going to show you in reality how it looks, right? Just show me what it looks and then talk to me about how good it is or what are the shortcomings and all that. So if you're a user of D365, you go to your environment. In this case, I'm in a test environment. You'll see this screen. And if you have the right accesses, you will be able to see this icon here. If you click on it and you have it properly configured, it will actually open a new window, which is a Power App built by Microsoft. This hasn't been built by us or anyone else. This is a out-of-the-box solution by Microsoft that will allow you to do administration of the invoice capture solution by Microsoft, as well as all the ongoing management of it. So if you think you want to see how many invoices you have done in the past 90 days or 60 days or whatever, you could actually use the dashboard where you will land right away. If you think there are invoices that are not being properly processed, or you're waiting for something hasn't come in yet, maybe the invoice capture solution had found an issue, right? You could actually look into all these information here, and it will allow you to actually see what is going on for a given invoice, all the way until it makes it to your D365. It does also have an admin section. So what you will see here, this is more your AP person, your AP clerk, the person who is day-to-day, dealing with all those vendor invoices. He or she will be the person that will use these screens and then do all the troubleshooting they have to do. There's also a setting or configuration section here where you will be able to actually go and change setup. Obviously, these setups are not things that you would be changing on a daily basis or even monthly basis. These are normally one-time setup that will put in place by someone who knows how invoice capture works, and then they'll continue working going forward. Time to time, you might have to do adjustments to these settings, but generally speaking, these are one-time configuration, and you will leave them like that for the rest of the life of your invoice capture. So how does this work? I want to run through a very typical invoice capture processing procedure. I have it actually recorded here. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and upload an invoice and show you how that invoice will be processed all the way to D365. Just want to add, normally this is not what you do, obviously, because you want to have it automatically processed without needing to upload anything. So in a normal invoice capture implementation, what you will see is that you have configured a mailbox. The files from vendors will land in that mailbox, and then you'll process, the invoice capture will pick up those files from that mailbox, will process it, will run all the roles that it has to run. And then finally, if everything is good, if the mapping is properly done, it will actually create that invoice in D365. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going ahead and uploading a file here. The file that I'm uploading has been already created in my D365. So what you will see here is that the moment I actually upload the file, or the moment that this file will be picked from an inbox, there are some automatic roles that will be running on that. So in this case, as you can see, it actually just put them automatically to cancel because that file has already been processed and it says duplicate file found. What I'll do next, I'll actually get an invoice that is new. It hasn't been yet processed by invoice capture. And I'll walk you through the journey of how it will be processed step by step. So the file is uploaded, or again, if this was a mailbox, the file is picked up from the mailbox. And what you will see, it will actually go to a processing status, meaning it's invoice capture is running those basic validation rules. Let's say you're saying, hey, I only accept files that are PDF, no image, or any basic rules where you say, hey, if the files are more than 200 megs or less than 100 kilobytes, I don't want to process them. Those simple validations, they will run. Once all those simple validations are good, it will actually go to the next screen here. So as you can see, it actually disappeared from my pending view in invoice capture. And if I go change my view here, apologies for this. If I change my view and I go to all received files, I see that the file that just uploaded, invoice 17, went to captured state. Since in the captured state, if I click on my captured invoices, you'll see that file will appear here. I can click on the file and I can see if everything is fine with the file. So in here, as you can see, it actually automatically figured out what legal entity it belongs to. It figured out the vendor account. In this case, I'm sending an invoice, so I am the vendor, and it automatically actually identified the vendor based on the image, as you can see here. And it also, by default, it assumes it's a cost invoice, so it doesn't need to do any PO matching or anything like that. As you can see here, also, it actually automatically detected some of the fields based on my file. So what is very interesting here is that we didn't have to train invoice capture to actually know that the currency code is Canadian dollars, or the address is the address we are seeing here. It used AI, the intelligence embedded into AI, and automatically showed these information to me. So as you can see, you're already way ahead compared to when you have to train an algorithm to know, hey, if you see a field top left, that is the address. Or if you see a grid, each of these lines are going to be representing quantity, so on, rate, and so on and so forth. So a lot of intelligence already embedded into this without me needing to do anything. In this particular case, as you can see, my invoice is still in invoice capture and it wasn't transferred. Why? Because we have an error. So the reason why this error is happening is because it's not recognizing the payment terms. Net space 30 is not a valid payment term it couldn't map it properly to the values in D365. And that is why it actually showed me these errors here in the messages section. So what I can do, I can actually say, hey, void, I don't want this invoice. This was an error. Or I can say, let me see if I can, I want to start a review and see how I can fix this so that I can push this invoice to D365. So I'm starting review, and then, oh, there you go. This is the field that had the problem. And you can see here, payment terms, net space 30 is not in one of the values that I have in D365. So what invoice capture did in this case, it actually went to D365. It fetched all the values, valid values for a payment term, and it didn't see net space 30. What did it see? What do we have then? We have probably something similar, in this case, net 30 without a space. Again, this is a simulated error that I created just to show that you can actually do a review if you want a review like that. And then I can say, okay, great. Now I complete my review, run a check again. I go to my messages section. If there is any errors, and the error disappeared. So I'm good to go. My invoice has all the files, the fields required. And then I can do complete review. My review is complete. Now, next thing I want to do is that I want to go ahead and transfer this invoice to D365. So if I click on that transfer to D365, it will actually show me will actually transfer D365. These additional information, we don't care so much about that. So if I go ahead and now that it's transferred to D365, I apologize. If I click on that transfer invoice, it actually showed this button, Open Dynamics 365, because it was successfully transferred to D365. And then by clicking on that link, I will actually go to the corresponding D365 environment. This, in this case, is a UAT environment, and I will see my invoice there. So if I want to look into that, I can go into details, look at the lines, look at all the dimensions if they're properly populated. And then if I want, I can also submit it to workflow from here. Or if you want to automatically, your invoices to be automatically submitted to a workflow, there is actually a setting. So the moment it comes in, it will automatically go to your workflow approval process, and then people can start approving it and so on and so forth. In order to do that, you can go to account payable parameters, and you go to vendor invoice automation. So this is where you would actually go ahead and turn those toggles on. That way, you will actually get it in automatically submit to workflow, automatically matching, automatic with product receipt. If you want to automatically apply a prepayment, that you have that setting and so on and so forth. So that's the high level, a typical journey for an invoice to follow. I just want to show you the bit where you would have your invoices landing in a mailbox. And that is typically what we see, almost 95% or 98% of the times what we see, where you would have a dedicated inbox, an email account set up. Your invoices will go to that inbox, and then you can also separate them if you want based on legal entities. You could have different folders, so they will land in those different folders. And then invoice capture, you do the setting, it will actually pick it up directly from that specific folder. So in this case, I have created this folder, and I'm dropping, every time an invoice comes in, it will automatically go into this folder. And what will happen is that invoice capture will actually take that and process them. So as you can see, this one, the one that I just dropped there, it goes to processing. And it will actually go through this very similar journey as the one that I just showed earlier. The initial validation will kick in. If everything is good, it will go to the captured one. So this invoice will go to captured. I can go to captured, and you can see it actually changed the status to created. And then it actually changed it automatically to transferred. If you compare it to what I showed earlier, this one actually is automatically being transferred to D365. Reason why is because all my validation rules and all my mapping rules, they were properly in place and they all ran as they should. So as you can see, it actually is doing that transfer automatically into D365. If I open that invoice, again, a lot of information automatically figured out. This is also an interesting feature as well, where you could actually see how did it actually find every piece of information. If you click on this eye icon, it will tell you, I got the payment term from this field here. And then if you click on any other fields, it will actually automatically pick them up. It will show you exactly where it got it from. So you could do that. You could also click on view history. It will actually give you a little bit of a history of, so that other field here in view history. As I said, this is transfers. In the view history, you can actually see the invoice has been successfully transferred to D365. And I can see the icon here. So again, if I click on this file, on this button here, I'll be able to see that invoice in D365 and take it from there, right? So this is the invoice in D365. I could do all the following steps after this. This is at the high level how the invoice capture works. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. The invoice capture. As you know, there are a lot of ISV solutions out there that we can leverage. Invoice capture was introduced a couple of years back. At the beginning, it was not as solid as everyone wished it to be, but Microsoft have been greatly improving it. I've had quite a lot of good feedback since the beginning last year, where Microsoft introduced a major enhancement. The biggest advantage is that you have native integration with D365, M365, SharePoint, and no middleware is required. Earlier, I showed you how it can actually read files from your Outlook, which is M365, but you could have the files actually landing in your SharePoint as well, and Invoice Capture will be able to pick them up. Invoice Capture is obviously, as you see, automatically transfers your invoices into D365. It does the mapping automatically with the values acceptable in D365. So all that, you don't have to configure it. It is actually using the AI behind the scenes to do all these, matching between your physical invoices, the location of each field, and the fields in D365. It's a pretty easy tool to put in place. Almost a week worth of time, you could get a basic version in place. Microsoft, they provide you a certain number of credits, so you can actually start using it without having to pay or having to buy any licenses. And that gives you a lower total cost of ownership when you compare it to an ISV solution. It has a single vendor support and compliance. Obviously, you're only dealing with Microsoft. You don't have an ISV, so it will be an advantage. I know if you eventually end up buying licenses, you don't have to go to a third party, sign another contract, and so on and so forth. It does continuous learning. It is integrated with Copilot, and it always follows Microsoft AI roadmap. So the more enhancements you get on the Microsoft front, they are going to probably be incorporated into Invoice Capture. It is on top of a solution in Power Platform. So you can actually change the way it works. If you want to introduce new roles, saying, hey, if I have a different legal entity, I want to have a specific type of customization, you could actually go ahead and create more Power Automates or change the Power Automate that already exists. You can create apps on top of the data, Power Apps on top of the data that you have in Invoice Capture. You can create BI reports without needing to actually get out of Invoice Capture. As you earlier saw, I actually have those dashboards ready. You have Customized AI Builder that you can use to train on those complicated vendors, that vendor invoices. So if you have a vendor that their invoice is drastically different from what the system can interpret and can read, you can actually create a custom AI builder and train it. And like that, any complicated invoice, you'll be able to map those fields into your fields in D365. It has built-in security and governance. Obviously, because you're in Microsoft ecosystem, all the users that are accessing this, they have to be in your Entra ID, they have to be properly, putting, if you put an MFA in place and all that, they're all that security and governance is going to still apply. What are the limitations? A lot of customers where we have seen you cannot put it in place internally if you do not have that experience. As opposed to an ISV solution where the ISV will come in, they will put that solution in place, they will turn the lights on and everything is going to start working and right away. In this particular case, you do have to do a little bit of implementation work. As I said, it's not extensive, but you do have to have some familiarity with how it works, especially if you don't have any Power Platform or D365 F&O expertise. Is going to be a little bit more challenging. Not all the files can be processed by invoice capture, and that was a little bit surprising. For example, you cannot actually process invoices in the format of Word or Excel. You can, however, obviously do PDF. You can do different formatting for images, JPG, JPEG, and so on and so forth. Our top recommendation is always to use PDF, just because we have seen scenarios where it starts not properly mapping fields. Maximum file size for an invoice is 20 megabytes. Again, you could have a vendor that's sending you hundreds and hundreds of lines of items, and if your file goes beyond 20 megabytes, unfortunately, you have this limitation right now. And there's also technical configuration if you have to customize it beyond a certain point. So as I talked to you earlier, if you're saying, hey, I want to get very complex invoices properly, to have the image recognition, to get the proper mapping and all that, or if you say, hey, I want to change my Power Automate, or if you want to, I want to change this, create a new Power App. So obviously you do need some in-house skills to be able to, do all those customization. Not every client have that kind of expertise and talent internally. So you're kind of a little bit reliant on your partner in that case if you don't have the skill set. In short, what we recommend, how you can pick your AP automation tool. Invoice capture is great because it's low cost, it's Dynamics native, and it's baseline automation. What I mean by baseline is because if you have every vendor sending their own format and same vendor sending different formats, and they go many hundred lines or many thousand lines, that becomes a kind of a challenge. Then we have two other solutions. If you do not want to go with the D365 invoice captures, we separate the IFC solution in two big parts. One is the lightweight ISVs, such as Duop. There are many others that you're not sponsored by them, so I don't want to mention them. There are also set up invoice handling tools with moderate cost. They are not super expensive, but are definitely more expensive than invoice capture. There is no setup for you to do. The supplier or the vendor of the solution will come in and put that in place, and will make it up and running. Finally, one last point, large ISVs such as Coupa, they are enterprise end-to-end full AP and procurement transformation platform. So definitely that is something that you can go ahead and purchase. They tend to be very strong, but also the cost of ownership is much higher than a typical ISV, or definitely much higher than an invoice capture. Anything you'd like to add, Grantley?
No, I think your point is well made. The lightweight ISVs and the large ISVs, what they did was they took the processes a lot further, a lot sooner. So when D365 wasn't capable of much in terms of automation when it first came out, they went ahead and they built all that functionality. With the advent of AI, with the advent of Copilot, with the continual development that Microsoft puts into the product, what's happened is their baseline functionality has been pretty much, and there's a slide that follows this, I'll show you the list, that completely erodes all of their core functionality. And what they've done instead is add a lot of surrounding functionality, additional features, additional functions, things that a lot of organizations don't necessarily need or use in order to keep those products alive. So one of the big things that we've seen, and I was just talking about this in the chat with a couple of people as you were presenting, Mo, is that the ISVs come with a very broad functionality set, but an awful lot of organizations are really only looking for invoice capture, processing, entry, validation, and all of those core functions exist inside F&O now. They didn't when those other ISVs first developed those tools. They developed them originally around OCR and all of the complexities that came with training an OCR model. But over time, that functionality has been almost completely eroded by F&O out of the box capabilities. And what they're left with is all of those additional features, which a lot of organizations haven't deployed, are not using, are paying for, and are now going, hang on a minute, do we actually need this anymore? And that's why we find ourselves at presentations such like this going, well, what can F&O actually really do? So exactly to that point, I just wanted to share with you, following on from that almost seamlessly, Mo, thank you. I just wanted to share with you, if I can find the right button to do it. I clicked on the wrong one. 1 second, bear with me. I have a list on the back of that last slide of all of the functionality that Microsoft classifies as AP automation that is available out of the box now with F&O. So you'll see the number one topic we've been talking about is basic invoice capture, which is the OCR and now the AI extraction of document content. And I also was chatting on the side about the number of different ways that we can receive those transactions, whether that's through a portal, whether that's through a chatbot with authentication, whether that's files, folders in SharePoint, whether that's by email. Somebody asked about Gmail integration with Microsoft. We don't believe in Google officially. Unofficially, it can be done. But then above and beyond that, automation also includes the ability to invoice match or receipt match. So 2- and 3-way matching of those transactions as they are ingested into F&O. There's the workflow and approvals that we've talked about. We also have the ability to automate the posting of those transactions, something that those third-party applications definitely cannot do. They can't automate posting with inside F&O, but our AP automation capabilities within F&O can auto-post approved transactions based on workflows. We have the ability to process prepayments automatically. We have the ability to do batch processing to trigger downstream business events and notifications, so we can go back and tell a vendor proactively when their invoice has been approved, where their invoice is in the approval process. And this is where AI starts to play a part in this as well. If I haven't said Copilot enough already, I will mention it one more time, because one of the things that we're seeing Copilot do is take a lot of that heavy lifting off of the inquiry part of AP. Where is my invoice? Why hasn't it been approved yet? When is my check coming? And we can deal with all of that communication directly out of F&O, either reactively or proactively. So the list of AP automation features inside F&O extends way beyond just invoice capture. And all of these things can be done inside the product you already have with the licenses that you're already paying for. These are configuration activities, that process design or confirmation and configuration and testing activities. They're not implement a new piece of software, buy a bunch of new licenses, learn a new tool, find out how that tool integrates with F&O, and deal with the failure points and the inconsistencies and updates and integrations that go along with all of that. So yes, there are some really, really clever things that those ISVs do, but if you don't need them, F&O can already do everything that's on this list out of the box. All right, how are we doing on time? We've got a little bit of time left, Mo. Would you like to take the screen back and talk a little bit more about the capture process, or maybe perhaps, please, if we've got some time, the cost model that goes with this?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna share my screen back again. Are you guys able to see my screen? Is my screen visible right now?
No, this is your screen is writing F&O AP automation features, right? Are you trying to show that?
I'm just gonna go one slide. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we've got you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you, Grantley. Yeah, as Grantley said, beyond AP automation in D365 is a full end-to-end solution. Invoice capture is one part of it. There are many other automations in place you can already use. Invoice capture being one of the most important one because it actually is the starting point of your automation. How invoice capture works in very simple words is that you will get your invoices intake through different channels. You could actually have it landed in a mailbox. You could have it coming into a SharePoint file or even OneDrive. Typically, what we see 95% of the time is that Outlook mailbox is used for that. Gmail could definitely be another solution, even though it's not a native integration, but you can easily do it using Power Automate. Once that invoice lands in any of these locations, you will have AI Builder that is working alongside OCR to actually detect all those fields. It will use Power Automate to actually populate and run all the validations you need on top of that invoice. And the validation that we saw earlier, look at invoices to be created. You don't want your invoice to miss certain information. You don't want the information that contained is not corresponding to what you have in D365. There are a lot of validation rules that you can run on top of that. The data will essentially land into the staging area, which is Microsoft Dataverse. And for many of you, if you're technical, you've definitely heard about that. For those of you who are not technical, it's just a location where you will be able to store the information before they go into D365 database itself. So it's really where you would put the data, run all your validations using that Power Automate. And the Power App that I showed you earlier, which is used by your AP clerk, your APS person, your AP manager, or the person who does the configuration, as well as by your IT teams, right? That they're the ones who will be setting that up. And that is really that Power App that I showed you earlier. So that Power App is sitting on top of Dataverse. And that's how you actually see all those incoming files, how you see captured invoices, how you see all those mappings and so on and so forth. Eventually, if everything is good, if the validation is properly running, and if you have to do any type of review and your review is passing, the data will be pushed into D365. Once you're in D365, you have the vendor invoice management and automation that Grantley just talked about. So all those functionalities, for two-way, three-way matching. If you want to do approvals, if you want to do any auto population of the rest of the fields that you have in D365, all that will be handled by your out-of-the-box functionality. Obviously, if you have GLs, if you have dimensions, default dimension, all that, they will be taken into consideration when that invoice is created. So really, once again, the beauty of invoice capture solution is that you have you are only using it to bring something in. Everything, once the invoice is in, all the logic beyond that is within your D365 and its out-of-the-box functionality. You don't have to have approvals in D365 as well as outside D365. It's all contained within D365. Very quickly, as the files pass through that steps in invoice capture, first they will go into a pending status. That means your file is received, but those basic validation rules will run. You have two options: either to retry if a retry is valid, or void it. Then it goes to processing. If the processing is good, and at that point, AI Builder is actually kicking in, extracting all the data. You could actually use the reset button if it's more than 5 minutes of processing. If the processing passes, but there are validation rules that haven't been properly run and you want to check them, you will see them in the captured invoices. So here again, you will go into that screen that I showed earlier. AI recognition is already in place there. Where you'll see all the mappings of different fields on your invoice, located on your invoice with what you have in invoice capture. If you don't want to process something and you say, you know what, this is a mistake. I see this invoice created by someone else manually, or for whatever reason, you can just void it. So meaning you want to stop processing that. For all the captured invoices, meaning the ones that have passed the pending and processing, they came in here, you have further steps to go ahead. If there are errors, you want to review them. The moment you click on the start review, your invoice will go to in review status. And once your review is complete, you can do complete review, and that will mark the status as reviewed. And then you will have that button that says transfer to D365. So once you hit that button, your status will be transferred. If there are any errors in this state, it will actually, or the transfer has failed, the status of your captured invoice will be error. All right, so we talked about at the high level how it works. We showed you in reality so that you have a concrete understanding of the UI, how it looks like, and how you interact with the invoice capture solution. We also talked about technically how it processes invoices and what journey the invoice goes through. The next thing that we were going to show you here is how much it costs to put it in place. We know it's not expensive, but there is some cost elements you have to be aware of. Number one, user access licensing. If you want to be able to work with the invoice capture, you do have to have a D365 Finance license, just because you want to go back and forth. And once something is created, you want to go and create it. So that is really the basic license that you need, a D365 license. And this is nothing that people are worried about, just because, if someone is already an AP person, they normally have a finance license. If you do not have a finance license and you still want to use the invoice capture app, you have to have a Power Apps license per user. Again, it's not typical where you say, hey, I have someone who's going to review invoices, but he's not a user in my D365 without a finance license. You have to have that Power App per user license assigned to that person. Also, you have to have invoice capture operator role assigned to in D365 Finance. That role should be assigned to that person. So that's in terms of licenses, F&O licenses that you need. The second piece is, which I will be less concerned about, is the storage capacity. As you know, you're bringing in files, and they could be 1,000 files per day. They could be many thousands per week, right? They do occupy capacity as they come in. There are some allotted capacity from Microsoft. You have 200 gigabytes of database file storage, that's in place. You also have not only file storage, but you have database storage from Microsoft. So those are in place. You will not have to buy something day one. But if you're using it beyond certain threshold, then you have to buy additional capacity. Again, it's not really an area where you have to focus too much on, because we haven't seen a lot of customers coming and complaining about this. The file storage is quite enough, and you can always go ahead and put a data retention policy in place, so you get rid of data that's more than, let's say, 2 years old. The piece that's a little bit more important is the last one here, is the per invoice cost that you have to pay. How it works is that Microsoft give you 100 invoice capture transaction per month for free. So that is really making everyone's life easy if you want to just try and see how it works. You don't have to go and ask Microsoft for licenses and involve your procurement and all that. You'll get 100 invoice capture transactions per tenant per month. Great for a proof of concept. Definitely nothing that a production scale type of invoice capture will support. If you have to buy additional capacity, as you can see, you can buy packs of 1,000 transactions. Each 1,000 transaction costs you $300 US. Those are per month licenses. One thing, this is, I think, one of the things that we would like you guys to walk away with is that when you buy these licenses, every 1,000 invoices that you're going to process will going to cost you $300. It will be per month. So if you say, hey, I have 45,000 invoices annually, and 50% of them are at my Christmas time because I'm a retail company, right? Unfortunately, you cannot use the transaction from the prior months. So you have to kind of buy additional capacity at that point. If you have capacity left from the prior month, they will just be lost. So basically, since it's monthly, is use it or lose it. So you want to be careful when we kind of do a little bit of an optimization when we put this in place. Say, hey, you know what, this is your average, so buy this, and then if you have peak periods, you can go in and purchase additional for those given months. So these are the three cost components that you want to be careful about. I have a little bit of a simulation, and reason why it's actually something that I took from one of the contracts that we sent to client of ours, just to show you how much it costs. Always people say, what, give me a ballpark. So in this case, the client had 45,000 invoices annually, and their cost was $13,000 for all that. If I want to walk you through very quickly through the logic of how it's calculated. So you have 45,000 invoices. Each month you get 100 for free. So for 12 months, you get actually 1,200 of them covered by what Microsoft give you. So that means you have to buy capacity for 43,800 invoices. If you buy them in packs of 1,000, that means you have to buy 44 blocks, and each block costs $300. So the final amount you have to pay is 44 by $300. You could take a screenshot of this. Just if you have a number of users, the same number of different number of invoices, just do the math. It's pretty simple. So again, just to give you a rough estimate, for about 50,000 invoices annually, you will pay $13,000. That's much how it costs. When we compare this to ISVs, and that was my slide earlier, when we compare it to even low-cost ISVs, this is considerably lower. And just because their model is primarily based on the transaction, Microsoft, you're using a lot of your, as you can see here, you're using a lot of your already purchased licenses that Microsoft are selling to you. So this piece is not significant. I mean, still is $30,000, but for the volume of that client had, it's pretty good. Granted, do you want to take this, or you want me to?
No. Let's. We're at 12:56, so let me wrap that up. So thank you very much for that, Mo. I hope that answered some of the questions that were coming through in the chat while we were talking about the costing model. So the model is based on per document ingested, but there is a free provision, and then the capacity calculation is pretty small compared to any of the third parties, which also carry a licensing charge and then a usage charge as well. One of the things that's happening, obviously, I'm going to say AI again, but one of the things that's happening with Microsoft's Copilot and AI enhancement of their functionality is that we're getting way beyond just automation based on rules, and we're getting into intelligent automation and intelligent processing and autonomous processing of these transactions. So only needing a user to step in where there is cause for them to step in. AI is also allowing us to get much more predictive in these things. It's allowing us to manage the vendor communication without necessarily a person having to type or send emails. It's allowing for the automated escalation of issues, the escalation of mismatches of transactions that maybe shouldn't be there, identification of potentially duplicate transactions or risks in transactions or transactions that just shouldn't be there. So as Microsoft continues to develop their Copilot agents and their Copilot functionality, all of these things are being plugged into the AP automation that F&O offers out of the box as part and parcel of their ongoing development of the product. So those enhancements are coming to you through every release, faster than every release in the case of some of the Copilot functionality. So unlike some of the other external products, the development is ongoing. The integration of Microsoft's AI, Microsoft's Copilot functionality, its ability to see the rest of your F&O data and communicate with your vendors. So it's not just looking at the invoice. It can look at the purchase order the invoice is related to. It can look at the receipt that the invoice is related to. It can do many more things with that data because it can see the balance of all of your F&O data. It can look at this vendor that's going, when am I going to get paid? And going, well, we always pay you early. So why are you complaining right now? It's still 3 days out. Don't worry about it. So the Copilot and the AI functionality allows us to become much more proactive, much more communicative, and way better informed about the overall body of a transaction than just the document that you sucked in for invoice capture. So that's just a quick comment on AP automation. Just to wrap this up, because I know we're at time, if anybody has any more questions, please ask them. But things to think about if you're looking for a solution, if you're looking to trade out your existing solution, or if you're just wondering what's available, there are, like I said, many, many elements to the F&O solution, out-of-the-box functionality. It does not come with an incremental additional set of user licenses for new software. It's one-time configuration, and then it's yours. It's core functionality. It's being continually developed by Microsoft, enhanced by Microsoft. Copilot is being plugged into these things more and more and more as part of that solution. So the AI functionality is improving literally by the week. It's impossible to keep up with the speed at which they're releasing out-of-the-box agents to do these things and the functionality that those agents have. And of course, the beauty of no third parties or ISVs is there are no integration or failure points. It's a single solution. It's core product functionality. We haven't plugged anything into anything else. So those are the plus sides. If you need some really, really advanced AP transformation across a global organization, then maybe you should go look at an ISV. But otherwise, we strongly recommend you seriously consider this list before you start looking to drop money on additional software. A couple of quick checkpoints before you begin any of these projects, just some of the things that we've seen of note as we execute these projects for our customers. Make sure you understand your process first. Like I said earlier, any of these elements can be implemented standalone. It's not an end-to-end or nothing. So make sure you understand the process and understand the problem that you're trying to solve before just plugging in a piece of technology and going, oh, look, this does stuff. Make sure your data is good. Make sure the underlying data is good so that when we line up transactions with vendors, that makes sense and they're going in the right place. Organize the way in which your invoices are coming into the organization. Tell your vendors, we now only accept invoices through X method or Y method, and stop that left, right, and center inbound document chaos that can be happening within organizations that have not established their own protocols for communication. And make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure IT knows what you're doing. Make sure finance knows what you're doing. Make sure procurement is aware that we can now auto match purchase orders. We can auto receive, that we can do all of these things, and make sure that everybody end to end is involved in that planning conversation before you do anything. Thank you very much for your time. We are 2 minutes over the hour. We have done our best to answer the questions in line as we go. If there are any that we missed, we can hang on the line for a couple more minutes here, or more than happy to take your inquiries. My email, my cell phone number, our website are all on the screen. We would be happy to book one-on-one sessions with you to discuss this, take any offline questions that you have following this, or anything else that we can help you with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.